Enter the Matrix.
And we're live.
Thank you. All right, cool. Should we do this thing?
Let's do.
All right, hey, I think we're gonna get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dri Xander. Thank you for braving the thunderstorm, although I guess it looks like it kind of stopped. But thanks for coming out. It's Chicago's place to build, share, and learn about civic tech. I always like to do this. Raise your hand if it's your very first Dri Hack Night. Wow, welcome to Excellent. Won't be your last one, I promise. So we have an awesome presentation tonight by Dri Xander here in the yellow sport coat. We're going to learn about lobbying Chicago City Council. Does that sound fun? I think it sounds fun. There's a lot to unpack there, so we'll let Adrian get to that in a bit. Before we do, we always have a couple things that we like to get to on our agenda. Number one is I'd love to meet all of you, every single one of you. So we're all going to go quickly around the room and introduce ourselves. After that, we'll have an open floor for announcements. Anybody wants to share anything that is newsworthy things like the Civic Tech app that you heard about that just got launched or some sort of new announcement, we have a place for that. Also, if you have an event that you'd like to promote that's also sort of civic tech related, we have a section for that. And also, if you have job postings, we also post those as well. So this thing we're looking at here on the screen is a Google Doc that anybody can edit. I just tweeted out the link to it on our Dri Hack Night hashtag. And you can also get to it by going to, you want to go to the website? Yeah, trihacknight.org, and you can see this is today. You're here right now. You click on that, and it'll take you to the Google Doc. So if you want to add something to that, please do. Maybe while we're doing the introductions. Other than that, oh, and also on that same doc, we usually try to keep notes from the presentation. So there's usually some diligent Steve Vance type folks who take notes, but if anyone wants to help out, that'd be great. Anything before we get to introductions? Oh yeah, do your bit. Chris, you're going to do his bit.
So we first want to thank Braintree for letting us use the space. During the breakouts, you can use the lunch area, any of these meeting rooms. However, this is their workspace, so these areas or places where that's obviously people's desks, don't go there. You can feel free to take 2 sodas from the fridge.
It says everyone, just the everyone.
Just the everyone fridge. Don't touch the alcohol. And then restrooms are over there. Wi-Fi passwords on the board. At the end of the presentation, we're going to have a question and answer session. Please note that it is question and answer. There's a lot of you here. We want to try to get to everyone's question. So if you go for about 7 seconds without getting to your question, I'm going to start clapping really annoyingly, and that's your cue to and let the next person ask the question.
And then a cane will come out and slowly drip. No, okay. Thank you, Christopher. Anything else to add, Braintree-wise?
No, this is fairly good. I work in engineer. We're hiring. I'm going to be around all night, so you see me, say hi, and I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Cool, thank you. All right, cool. Well, then we'll get straight to the introductions. I'll go ahead and start. I'm Derek Eder, partner at DataMade. I also run this event with Christopher. I like to make stuff with open data.
Hi, my name is Christopher Whitaker. I'm part of Code for America's Brigade team and the co-host of Dri Hack Night.
Oh wait, I want to do one thing. Last time, if you were here, we did favorite colors. I want to try something a little different this time. I think it'll be super fun and informative. Because we're talking about City Council tonight, please, if you can, tell us what ward you live in.
I live in Skokie.
Out of bounds. And I will keep track of it here.
Does not have wards.
Oh, fascinating. All right, so I'm in 35. Sorry, 32.
I could go into the weird bits of my address, but
yeah. Let's go, I suppose, this way.
I'm Martin. I'm a transportation planner in the 2nd ward.
I'm Melanie. I work at Thanksgiving at Northwestern, and I just checked. I'm also in the 2nd ward. My name is Cindy. Immigration advocacy activist, whoever is familiar with the lobby. I'm in the 2nd ward.
Hi, my name is Tony. I do a lot of work with immigration and tech, and I also am in the 22nd Ward.
Crystal Leach, I'm the UX and, UX and strategy consultant, and I'm in the 48th ward.
Get through. Go ahead, Forrest.
I'm Forrest. I'm a partner at Data, and I'm in the 5th Ward.
Hi, I'm Josh Caleb. I'm an open data consultant. I work with Cook County to help open up their data, and I live in the 47th ward.
I'm Scott Ross. I'm a developer, mostly JavaScript, and my phone isn't on the network right now. Wherever Ukrainian village is.
Carl Coleman with Open Tech Strategies, also 48th Ward, I'm the third one.
Okay, thank you. So which ward? 48th? Thank you.
Stephen Vance, I'm a transportation reporter with Street Blog Chicago, Ward 28.
I'm Dick Mayer. I'm a senior researcher at Jacob Hall at the University of Chicago. I do work in child and welfare policy. I am barely in the 25th ward.
I'm Brian Ferber. I work in creating experiences, not on the techie side. I'm a founding member of Neighbors of West Loop, which is a nonprofit all-volunteer organization, and I very much know that I'm in the little sliver that is the 48th ward within the ever-expanding West Loop.
I'm Claire, I'm an interaction designer at University of Chicago, and I'm in the 48th ward.
40th?
48.
Oh, 48, thank you.
David Melton, I'm senior advisor to the Illinois Campaign for Political Reform, and I'm in Evanston.
Ah, out.
I'm Nolan. I'm a math and complex student at U Chicago, and I'm in the 5th Ward.
I'm Kevin. I'm a data scientist. I'm also in the 5th Ward.
I'm Dylan, biometric engineer, 42nd Ward.
Pete Ediger, serial technologist, commoner, and consultant with all things IT. And I'm in the 46th Ward. Go up there.
Yes. I'm Sarah Rudy with the Illinois Campaign for Political Reform, and I'm in the 47th Ward. But across the street is the 46th Ward, so.
Scott Blair, I'm a research service designer, and I'm in the 48th Ward.
I'm Andy from Chicago Public Schools, data science. I am in 46th, I'm pretty sure. It's a long time.
Manish, I'm a student at IIT. I'm told that's located in Ward 3.
I'm H. I'm the communications director for Get Equal, which is a queer organizing network, and I'm in the 35th ward.
Oh.
I'm Crystal. I'm a development assistant at the Rondo Christian Legal Center. I'm technically in the 49th ward, but I do all my work in the 24th ward. So you may want to count me.
That's where you live.
My name is Brian. I'm visiting from DC. My hotel's on the 42nd.
Nice. I can't count that actually.
In DC, I'm in the 5.
Okay.
I'm Kevin. Sitting on the edge of the precipice of the 60s war. And Dave Phillips from the Technical Information Museum, and I'm the high school program there, and I'm from the 49th ward.
Allison, I'm a graphic designer, and I'm in the 44th.
I'm Alexander Boulevard, 49.
Adrian Alexander, 49-4.
That's where that time is update 30
Joel Linwood, Public Information Officer for the Cook County Bureau of Technology. First word first. Cook County Commissioner Robert Seals.
We'll do county commissioner districts next week, okay? All right.
My name is Stephen Lucy, Rails developer and also green grocer.
I'm Curtis, I'm a developer and I also support.
Hey, I'm Tucker. I work in operations at ATF. It's a digital services team inside the federal government. I live in the fourth floor. Chris Hagan, I'm a reporter at WBZ. I'm the 33rd floor.
And I'm Cook, I'm a transportation provider at WSPTV, and I'm in the 47th. Hi, I'm Jay G. I'm a graduate student in mechanical engineering in Evanston.
So you have 7 kids running policies in his office.
I'm Alex Sims, I'm director of IGA for the treasurer's office, and I'm in the 47th.
I'm a business analyst, I'm in the 46th floor.
I'm Bill Allen, software developer and coach of the board.
I'm Kevin, I'm a web developer, I live way out in the burbs, so no board. And actually my third week here at Braintree.
Myron Gates, software development, third thing.
Fourth.
Hey everybody, Fabian Elliott, founder of Black Tech Mecca, and I live in the 25th floor.
I'm Kevin Yarrow, I'm a web developer, and I live in the 44th floor.
I'm Trevor Jones, I work at
45th.
Western Partners, consultant, and I live in the 44th.
My name is Nick, I'm a trader at Eagle 7.
I'm your advisor, systems architect, and
50th?
My name is Paul Biasco, I'm a reporter with DNA Info, and I live in the 35th.
I'm Kate Laurel, and a PhD student in chemistry, and I also do data stuff in Python, and just found out I live in the 37th.
All right.
I'm Hillary, I'm a student at Yale, and
I'm Chris, I'm a data scientist, and I live in the 42nd.
I'm Ethan, I'm a developer, and I live in the second floor.
I'm Elias, I'm an analyst from consulting, and I'm a 42nd.
I'm Rob, I'm a developer in the 46th floor.
I'm Nick, I'm an attorney with the state of Illinois, and
James in 44th.
I'm Nick, architecture designer in the 37th.
My name is Tom Shank, I'm the chief data officer for the city of Chicago, I'm in 47th.
All right, first one.
I'm a programmer at Northwestern, and I'm third.
Mark.
I'm Nina Sandlin, I'm with the Disability Advocates, 47th Ward.
We got one for that.
I'm Stephen. I am also a Dri Xander, and I also live in the 45th floor.
And popular word.
My name is Andrew, I'm a web developer, and I'm the second.
I'm Brian Dye, I'm a criminal justice researcher, and I live in the 47th.
My name is Noah, I'm a web developer, and I live in the 30th floor.
My name is Colin, unemployed, 48th floor.
I'm a web developer, and I live in the Covers.
Robert, Mozilla, 24.
I'm Paul, I'm a public policy graduate student, I live in the 4th floor.
Eve. I do youth programs in ed tech, and I live in the 46th ward.
I'm Rich, web developer on Twitter, in the second.
I'm Lincoln. I help organizations interpret, find, and share data. I live in we're the 5824. I'm Jamie Richmond. I work at Chicago Public Schools as a STEM program manager. I live in 47.
I'm Steve. I'm a writer, developer, live tweeter in the 52nd ward.
Maybe.
I'm Sandra Walker. I live in Chicago. I used to. I am a state banner now and a software engineer.
Cool. And we miss anybody? Okay. Oh, yeah.
I'm Bonnie. I'm a CPA,
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
I should say, I choked, I'm 28 ward, I'm 48, so sorry.
Sorry, which one are we changing it from?
48 to 20. That makes sense.
Wait, what did I say? Oh, 2. Thank you. Okay. We're good, right? Close enough, right? Raise your hand if you had to look that up. Wow! Well, you now know. You're welcome. That was fun. Someone make a map of this. Okay, so we'll move on to announcements. We have some things written down here on the list. I'll go through these, but if you want to share something, you can raise your hand. So I'll go ahead and start. Anybody in the room work on the Illinois budget clock? Do you want? I could talk about it. Does somebody else want to talk about it? I talk too much. Yeah. Oh yeah, talk about it.
So Illinois budget clock. That went live, I think, on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
The day after folks got together that night and added reasons. We're counting down, or counting up, I guess, from July 1st when the budget was supposed to go into effect and it was not passed. And something that was really cool that happened this week, besides getting a fair number of retweets and a little bit of press, in Pennsylvania, they also did not have a budget, so Open Pittsburgh picked this up and did a Pennsylvania version of it, which was really neat to see.
Does it work? Boom. There you go. That's open source for you.
And it's an issue that's still ongoing. So if anybody's interested in helping to continue to tweet things as they come up, then we could use a little help with that, and I can certainly give you access to help with that if you would like to. And then if anybody has a little time to maybe, we're talking about maybe we'll refresh some of the reasons that we have populated here. Let me or Derek know. Can give you access to GitHub.
Cool. Yeah, this was fun. It was like a quick project that turned around really quick, so that was a fun thing to work on. Cool. So, oh, someone's editing as I type. Large lots. Does anybody live in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood, or know anybody who does? The city of Chicago is selling vacant lots that they own for $1. This is actually the 5th neighborhood that they've done this in. Other neighborhoods have been down sort of in a larger area, sort of centered around the greater Inglewood area, East Garfield Park, Austin, and most recently before this, Roseland Pullman. Basically, they have about 100 lots. If you want to buy one, you can, as long as you already own property on the same block. So it's actually been a pretty successful program so far. And the plan is to spread around the city. Yeah, what's up? You have to own property on the same block as one of these. So you can't just go in and like spend $100 and buy up all this property. I'm sorry. The idea is to get it back in the hands of the residents, right? So that what the people found. Yeah. So an important one in that, yeah. So but the idea is to get it back in the hands of the people who are there. Oftentimes, folks are already taking care of these lots, and so it's sort of like formalizing that relationship. So.
Is this after one that Damon running?
Yeah, Damon worked with us for he basically was involved in getting the policy. He helped push for that, and then the city adopted this policy. And that's how the first pilot came to be, so yeah.
I don't mean the pilot, I mean the program.
Yeah, right. The pilot turned into the program.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. if you missed 2 weeks ago, Tom Shank, dude in the tie over there, presented on the new Open Grid platform that the city has. We have a video of that entire presentation, thanks to our friends Scrappers Film Group. Wave Scrappers, yay! So feel free to check that out. Also, we now have a YouTube channel, kind of a big deal. Okay, last thing from me. If you want a t-shirt, Christopher's wearing one, 15 bucks. Yes, the price went up from 11 to 15. So that's just how it goes. If you want one, come find me after the presentation. Tracy, do you want to talk about your petition for change.org? Is Tracy here? Oh, okay. Do you want to talk about it, or I can? I can talk about it. I'll talk about it. So Tracy Siska, who's around the corner, I suppose, has a petition to try to get the state's attorney's office to open up data. They're looking for people to sign this petition. So if you believe in open data and you think that they should release open data, which they have never done before, then sign this petition. Technovation, looking for mentors. Anybody here from Technovation?
That's my
Hey.
passing it along. So Technovation is just a general program that helps teams of young girls learn to code and build a mobile app. And they're looking for women to be mentors. And it's a global program, specifically in Chicago. There are 3 teams at Lane Tech looking for people as of yesterday. But I'm sure there are lots of other teams in Chicago looking for mentors if those slots are taken. I think the commitment's like 2 hours a week.
Cool. Did Stephen Vance just post a map? Wow. So that's pretty cool. We don't have everybody here, do we? We'll keep working on it. But big showing from 47, and this is 5th, right, down here? Yeah. There you go. Very cool. Thank you, Stephen. All right, moving on down. Means database needs Ruby devs. Anybody here from that?
That's me.
What's up?
So Means is actually in DC. That's where I went to code boot camp, and that's like I actually just got a job, but for the last several months I've been like redoing their whole front end. So it's like a cool place to sort of like start working, get some experience. If you're just at a code boot camp or college or something, you don't have a full-time job yet. But because of that, we keep like losing people. So some of our back-end guys got a full-time job, can't really help anymore. It's a really small group. It's really like cool, tight-knit. Most of them are still in college, so like I'm the old man on staff right now, which is weird. So yeah, if you know Ruby or Rails, or want to get better at writing tests or something, they just told me we can use anybody. So yeah, find me. My email's on there.
Cool, thank you. Fill out our Crumbs survey. Who's that?
Hi, so as mentioned, I was here for Chicago. We actually started building a small sort of concept from a high hackathon. And the idea is that there are a lot of nonprofits who need tech help and startups. And on the other side, there are students and other tech experienced people who want real world projects to do. So the idea is that we're building a web platform to connect the two and have people showcase their projects to employers. And on the other side, you're in the world, right? So we would really appreciate it if you guys, if you are part of that tech talent group, if you could fill out a survey down there. And there's another one if you're a nonprofit / startup that wants tech help, and we would actually like connect you with a few students who would be willing to work on a few projects. And we also will be working on the website later today as a work. See if you're interested.
Cool, thank you. Summer internships needed for STEM high school students.
That's me right
Hey.
here. So to give you some background, we're at the Chicago Public Schools, and this summer we're having a internship program for our students in our STEM high schools, like juniors and seniors. They are all really well rounded in technology, web development, and all that stuff. And we're trying to place them in different organizations around the city. Last year we had 93 interns placed. This year we'd like 175, but we need more organizations to open their doors and post interns in the summer. We do have our interns receive a salary over the summer, about $1,000 for about 6 weeks of work. But really, we just need promotion and getting the word out that we have an internship program. We need more organizations to open more jobs and post interns at their companies. So my main information is on there. Feel free to contact me, email or in person. I'll talk to them about it.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you. Events, Hack Illinois, February 19th through 21st. I don't think anybody is here from that. Ally Skills Workshop is Wednesday, February 10th. Anybody here from that? Okay. Cross-border hackathon, also happening. And then there's a US-Canada hackathon happening on February 26th through 28th. Oh, those are the same thing? Oh, duplicate. Okay, sorry. Whoa, editing as okay, there we go. Northern Illinois Code-Across event, Christopher, this is you, right?
So Northern Illinois University in DeKalb, that's about an hour and a half away, is hosting its 4th annual Code-Across the World. Code-Across is an event hosted by Code for America in several different cities around the globe to help celebrate International Open Data Day. Northern Illinois University is looking for mentors who can help college students with their civic technology skills. If you're interested, please see me.
Cool. Tech for Justice Hackathon, anybody here know about that? Yeah, it's up.
So Tech for Justice, they're a advocacy group using tech for real world justice problems, and they're actually hosting a hackathon based on for solutions for victims of domestic violence. So they're like 3 main things. They're Eagles, which I can't read, but they actually produced an emergency response app called Buoy. I think it was out last time. That was really cool. And they're looking for really anyone that's interested, from legal experts to tech out, really anyone. So yeah, contact me if you're interested in sponsoring, just being there.
Cool, thank you. Homie Hackathon for EduMap.
Oh, sorry, that was last.
Oh, that already happened? Oh, cool. How'd it go? Boing, thank you. Public Lab Chicago meetup. Looks like that's happening. Anybody?
That's me over here. So, yeah, if you guys don't know about Public Lab, check out that link. We've given Public Lab folks have given kind of talks here on DIY environmental science. Anyways, we're just trying to get together a meetup of Chicago folks that have been working through Public Lab. It's going to be at 3 buildings next Wednesday, so tomorrow. If you have any questions, come ask me or click the email there. We had a big meetup like back in June with a bunch of people, and we haven't really met for the group chat time. Open community, everyone's welcome, so just put that in there.
Cool, thank you. Moving on to jobs. Dev Bootcamp, one of our sponsors is hiring a community marketing manager. State of Illinois is still hiring a chief data officer, is that right? We know?
Next week.
Okay, find out next week. Robin Hood Foundation is seeking fellows for a summer program. OpenGov Foundation is hiring a developer. Chicago Tribune is hiring a news apps developer. The American Library Association is hiring a junior developer. So all these are posted on the doc. All right, so that's it for the listed announcements. Does anybody have any last announcements? Raise your hand. Yeah.
This volunteer opportunity, if you are pretty experienced or medium experienced with Ruby on Rails, and you would like to help the American Red Cross, just come find me. I'll be here for a while tonight. This is a project where you can decide how involved you want to be. It is coding. It is software that's in production, used for Red Cross volunteers around the country already, and we could use some help.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, one more for me. There was a cross-border hackathon that was mentioned previously. They're actually looking for people who are experienced with API development to serve as mentors for like a 2 to 3 hour slot. And it's cool because the U.S. Department of Homeland Security provides like a sandbox for you to play with. So yeah, I think
cool. Yeah.
I didn't put this on the job section, but CT is actually looking to hire analysts. So if you're interested, please contact me. I'll put the information.
Cool. Thank you. Excellent. Awesome. All right. So Adrian, come on up. So we're gonna get to our feature presentation. I just wanted to start this off with a little personal story. Lobbying in Chicago is something that I admittedly know very little about. Yet this is the very first civic app that I ever worked on. It's called ChicagoLobbyist.org. It was really kind of the start to my journey in doing this stuff, and it was all because this open data was available. And one of the things that I learned from building this website is that you can make something and you can put a bunch of stuff on a web page, but in this case, it only led to more questions. So Theodore Brunswald, he's a lobbyist, right? Looks like he's making a lot of money. he does stuff like procure business. Like what does that even mean, right? So there's just so much to know, and I feel like so much of it cannot be, or at least has not yet been captured by anything data that's like open data, right? You just need people to tell you what's going on. And so we have a very cool person here, Adrian, to give us a little bit of insight into what she does and sort of lift the veil a little bit in terms of what goes on when it comes to policy at City Council. So without further ado, Adrian Alexander.
Should be working. Okay. All right. So if you have gone to me on the website, you would have seen that I do one thing, and that's lobby City Council for one client, and that's AFSCME, Council 31. So we are one of the biggest labor unions in the state. Most people know us right now because of us being the largest state employee union and the budget impasse and the contract we don't have with the governor yet. But I do city council lobbying. I lobby Cook County. I also lobby at the state level. But for tonight's purposes, I'm going to focus on city council. The easiest way to explain what I do is I look at budgets, I look at legislation that comes out, I look at what the impact on our members is going to be. I talk to aldermen or state reps, whoever, about the impact on our members. And then when they're great with us, I hope that help that they get reelected. And when they're not, sometimes we support candidates against them, and I help coordinate our members against them. So it's kind of a really three-pronged strategy on what I do. And I say that because not all lobbyists do all those things, and because I think it's particularly important for the work that I do that I have my hands in all of those pots. So when people ask me about being a lobbyist, because often they're surprised when I tell them that's what I do, the question that I get asked the most is, well, what's your biggest win? Or what's the most important piece of legislation that you passed? And until this year, I didn't really have an answer because we play a lot of defense at AFSCME. But this year we had a big win at the city council. We, after 3 years, passed an ordinance dealing with privatization. And it started out as the Privatization, Transparency, and Accountability Ordinance. During the 2011 budget, the mayor moved to privatize a water billing department, and we represented those people as about 40 folks. And it was built into the budget. So it got a lot of aldermen kind of upset. It was supposed to save $100,000. There was 40 people living in the city that were getting laid off, mostly Black Southsiders. So the aldermen in their wards, our members were calling their aldermen to talk about it. And Alderman Sawyer introduced the PTAO ordinance to try and do something about creating a process. So if the mayor wanted to privatize something, there would be a council, city council would be involved. For assets like the parking meter deal that most everyone is familiar with, there is a process in place that was set up by the state actually that required city council passage, which is why there was the big uproar that only a few aldermen voted against it. That was not the case for services, and we had a number of services privatized where we represented members. So we worked with Alderman Sawyer to get this legislation introduced. When it was introduced, we had 27 co-sponsors on it, and it was happened right with the budget process. So I called my mom afterwards. I was so excited. I was like a year into the job. City council was still new and fun to me. And so I called my mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. We got the majority of council to sign on to this privatization ordinance. This is great. This is like, to me, getting above 25 is like the thing you need to hit, the number you need to hit to make things happen. Majority of council supports it, so of course it's going to pass. So it took 3 years to get there. And important is what happened in the middle. So after we got the 27 signed on, it got kicked to rules and sat for a while. We did a lot of press work. We had a broad coalition, not just of other unions, but of community organizations. Just like a really broad coalition. I think we had 36 organizations that we worked with. Namely, the Better Government Association got on board with it. And we actually had the Union League Club support, which, you know, when you're talking, we were working also with a DC organization that does work on privatization nationally. And they were like, oh, great, you got the Union League Club, you know, another union organization. I'm like, no, like, this is a big get for us. They even hosted a press conference. It was a big deal that they were taking a position on a policy initiative at the city. And we had a pretty diverse group of aldermen on our side too. So, so we had some good spokespeople for the issue. It's really a quite boring process. It's completely process-oriented legislation that just sets up review after a year. After the privatization has gone through, you have to meet a certain threshold, things like that that are really important to us. And generally have, you know, people care about privatization in Chicago mostly because of the parking meter deal. So in that sense, it was important to people, but it didn't have quite the touchy-feely, very concrete outcomes like a housing ordinance would. So we had to do a lot of press. We actually had a guerrilla sticker campaign on the parking meters to talk about the ordinance. It was hard to get press to stay focused on it because, you know, nothing was happening. It was stuck in rules for years. And so they're like, well, if nothing's happening, there's nothing to talk about. And we're not really going to write stories about nothing happening forever. So we were kind of in limbo for a while, but we were constantly trying to organize our members and organize different constituencies around it, put pressure on aldermen to go talk to the mayor, to go talk to the chairman of rules to get some movement on it. So it took a lot of both like lobbying on my part, but that wouldn't have done it alone. It took the press, it took the grassroots work, and finally we got to a point. It also took an election, I think it's fair to say. We finally got to the point where the administration was willing to sit down with us. We negotiated a deal in November. We passed the legislation overwhelmingly. So that was like my first win at city council. And it just kind of gives you a sense of it on a policy level at City Hall. It can take a long time if you're not, initially it's not something that's supported by the administration. Someone asked me on Twitter like about the changing dynamic between city council, between the council and the administration. And I think it's important to realize a lot of city councilmen, a lot of aldermen most of the calls that they get are not about policy, right? Like the overwhelming majority of the calls that aldermen get are about tree trimming, alleys, trash, you know, these very quality of life, very specific to their ward issues. Those are the things that drive most voters. I mean, even me in my personal life, I've only called my alderman once, and it was about graffiti. And I mean, there really isn't a personal when you're a lobbyist and calling aldermen. So I said, you know, hey, there's this graffiti has been up forever. It's huge. It's really an eyesore and a problem. It's gang graffiti, and I know you guys cut the graffiti blasters into the 2011 budget and haven't really recovered, but you know, I think this should happen. So the things that drive the voters are really kind of critical to what drives the aldermen, and they're not being talked to by a lot of people about policy issues. So I think that creates both an opportunity in that if there's something that you see and you want done, I think you'll stick out because there's not a lot of folks talking to aldermen about that. And the alderman may be willing to work with you in a way that might surprise you because there's just not that many people talking about that. But you should also know that when you're talking to aldermen, because most of them, I think it's fair to say, most of them, their mindset that's not the primary focus of the job. There's a lot of people on the election side. You can be the most citywide focused alderman, really focused on policy, but if you don't take care of the stuff in your ward, you will lose your election. And I mean, the first round of aldermanic races when I came, we supported Fredrina Lyle in the 6th ward, and she had like a 95% voting record with us. And I remember we were calling our members to let them know, like, hey, the union has endorsed your ward, and people were saying, that's great, but I live on her alley and she doesn't even keep that clean, or that's fine, but when I go up to the office for word night, her staff has an attitude. And we worked really hard, but it didn't matter because of that very basic stuff. And I think that our members are pretty engaged, right? And usually when we tell them the unions endorse someone, this person is in a fight for their seat, and they have a really good record with the union, that usually means something. But Alderman Sawyer was able to beat her in a runoff just for that very basic reason. So I say that to say those are the things that are driving a lot of the aldermen, and the stuff that's going on in the media. I think it's kind of started. I'd say the 2015 aldermanic races, where so many more women to run off than previously ever had happened, I think made a lot of aldermen pay attention more, realize that they had to be more responsive. Maybe it wasn't enough to say, I have the support of the mayor. They also have to have something on their own to stand for.
Sorry.
Very dramatic lighting. It's because I mentioned it. Yeah, I think that kind of made people pay attention, and like it was interesting because Alderman Sawyer, there's being in the Progressive Caucus, and in the Black Caucus, I think before the elections, there were a number of aldermen that were looking at him like, you should be careful, stepping out too far. And then there was kind of a wave of more progressive aldermen that got elected, and none of the Progressive Caucus folks that were running for alderman lost. So I think him getting elected Black Caucus chair kind of shows how folks' mindsets were changing a little bit. And then when you add on top of that, the pressures from the LaPon McDonald video and the aldermanic vote and lack of questioning on the settlement and the pressure that they've gotten there, I think it's making them more aware and more concerned, realizing that they have to do more, or at least be seen as doing more. But I'm not bought into the idea yet that there's going to be some kind of revolution in council to where there's going to be a huge change or a huge backlash for the mayor. I just haven't seen it yet. What I did see last council meeting was a flurry of introductions, particularly around criminal justice. And I think, people want to be seen as doing something. It'll be interesting to see a number of those were sent to rules. It'll be interesting to see what the follow-up is afterwards, and whether people are going to be grandstanding and pushing and trying to negotiate to get things out of rules, or if they're content with having introduced it and getting a press pop. Let's see. Oh, I guess I should also say, I think another factor in that question of independence will be the state's attorney's race. And I think if Anita Alvarez ends up losing the state's attorney's race, that'll be kind of another thing in that list of things that might shift the dynamics a little bit. I got asked as well about money in politics, and I think I started out saying that I have one client. I am employed by AFSCME, so that creates a different dynamic than if I was a contract lobbyist. Contract lobbyists, as I see it, I've never been a contract lobbyist, but from my perspective, as a contract lobbyist, you have multiple clients. Your primary focus is the relationships at all costs. Like, no one's going to hire you if you don't have relationships with community powerful people. For me, my primary focus is my members and making sure that whatever it is I advance what's best for my members, and having one client kind of allows me to make that the primary focus, the issue the primary focus. And not to say nobody wants to blow off any relationships, but if there's someone my union's going after, then I don't really have to pretend I'm associated with the union. I am Adrienne from AFSCME, period. Like, there's no other, that is my identity, the people who know me in politics. So for us, the way we determine who gets money or who doesn't, and I'm pretty proud of this because it makes my life easier. I get to have the moral high ground. We have a rubric. So every time that I ask people for their vote on something, to sign on to a letter, to show up at a press conference, it goes into my Excel sheet, and everyone is asked, everyone gets a yes or a no. They all get a grade, essentially. And if you're at a certain level, then you get money, and there's like 3 bands, and it's equal that way. So they're, politicians, because they don't often know that we have a rubric. I get a lot of accusations, especially when I first started, particularly in Springfield. There's a lot of accusations like, oh, well, the unions give more money to white people, or the unions give more money to Chicago people. And it's easy to say, no, look, we have this rubric. Everyone who falls into this gets this. That's how it's done. This person got more money because they had a better score. You didn't because you voted wrong on half of our stuff. So it makes it easy to do. That's how we do it. Everybody, of course, doesn't do it that way. I can talk about how other folks do their contributions. There's the question of lobbyists and taking folks out to eat. If Derek had pulled me up, you would have seen that I didn't spend any money on taking people out. I prefer not to. That's just a personal preference. I mean, especially, I think it's more the case in Springfield, where you're out of town, people are going to dinners a lot. That's more prevalent there, although I know contract lobbyists do a lot more here. That's also reflected on the site. But for me, it's like, there's no point in buying someone lunch at City Hall when we can sit in your office and talk. There's no need. And for me, I think kind of the stuff that AFSCME is asking in particular, it's mostly budget focused and kind of hard ask. We want you to step out in a press conference and say the mayor's holding on to our privatization bill and it should get out of rules. That's a harder ask that buying a dinner isn't going to get you. So why? I mean, and our money that we give from our PAC is out of members' paychecks. So it makes me feel more responsible, like I need to be responsible with it. I would hate to be giving dinner here, and then the next day people are voting against us on all the big issues because they were happy to go to dinner for free but not willing to step out on a vote. Because our members look at that stuff too. I mean, it's all available, and so we get dinged all the time. You guys just gave this person $5,000 and then they did that, as if it should translate, but it doesn't. So it's easier for me. I mean, sometimes we do we take the Black Caucus out for dinner in Springfield to discuss some issue, and it's rarely on my card, just out of principle. And then Steve asked me a question about data, and what data would be helpful to me for the job. And I had to confess this was actually the hardest question I got, because I do use, I use the city's open data portal a lot, and I've looked on the lobbyist site when it came out, and I feel like I pay attention to the open data stuff that's coming out, but the stuff that's most helpful is the hardest to get. We've been asking the Department of Public Health about numbers on mental health clinics, and where did people go after the clinics close. And that's, we can get something and then it's well, is this the best? Is this the most accurate? Or is there other data that's out there? And that's kind of the data stuff that I'm thinking about most often in my job. Is what's the accuracy of this data? And I'm looking forward to, I'm glad that the city now has an independent budget office to kind of look at some of the budget data and information that comes out. But I don't really have a good answer to your question, Steve. I'm always excited to see what people are doing with the data, particularly at the city that comes out. I think the mapping stuff that WBZ did around 911 phone calls and mental health and stuff like that comes out occasionally is really good. Particularly because I think a lot of the aldermen just may not know how different city policies are impact their own ward until other people share that information with them. But yeah, there's not one data set that I've been looking for that doesn't exist. So with that, I'll open up. There's a question.
Sorry, hope I didn't jump the gun.
No, that's what I was getting to.
Okay. So two-part question. First one, so where exactly does the money go? And then when you guys get so does it go to your campaign fund, or how does that work? The second piece, what are the other inputs that politicians are taking in to make decisions other than just from the lobbyists?
Yeah. Okay, so the first question, where does the money go? We cut checks to their campaign funds. And sometimes it's very specific acts, leading up to during elections. That's when we give our biggest checks, and usually it's because we know very specifically what they're going to spend it on. And in the same way that I don't like spending on their meals, in a macro way, the union would like to know when we give someone a $5,000 check, it's not just, I mean, some of them maybe use our money to do passing, which I think is I'm not from Chicago, so we didn't do poll passing. It's a waste of money to me.
What's that?
When you go vote, sometimes there's people standing out that have a card that says punch whatever in their name, as if you didn't know who you were going to vote for when you arrived, but it's the throwback from the machine days when, that person, your precinct person was giving you the list of who to vote for. But I think it's a little less effective now. But usually we want to know what our money is going towards, and we want to know it's an effective means of spending the money. But it's campaign funds. And then the second question around what other inputs. A lot of times I think it's random constituents that may weigh in on something, and that's seriously the most effective. I mean, I think for me as a lobbyist who represents people, members that live in their districts, if there's a serious bill that I'm working, then I'm doing my job best when I have a member that lives in their ward that comes with me to talk about. I talk about the big picture issue, why it's important for the union. They talk about how they're impacted by it, and they say, and I live in your ward. that's because they would rather not tell someone who's voting for them or not, that they don't want to do what they're going to do. Alex, you want to add?
Oh, I was going to ask you a question, but I can add it. They go to subject matter experts sometimes.
Yeah.
Not all the time, and it differs by alderman.
Yeah, well, and on that, I would say that's why we're really useful during AFSCME, is really useful during budget time. I mean, a lot of what I do is analyzing. I look for every single member in the budget to make sure they're still there, and if they're not, then I'm talking to them about what it is that budget line that they're cutting, like what the tangible impact is, because when the aldermen get the budget book and they have their daily department meetings, they may have some questions just based on the numbers, but the commissioner's not going to go through every line of the budget. So a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll say, there's an increase in the contract line here. Can you ask a question about that? Or this program is being cut, so can you ask them to justify what it is that they're doing about that program? So I'll pass out questions to the alderman just to help them understand what the impact is. Do you have a question?
I did. I was going to make you get juicy. So I've been in City Hall for a year now, working for Treasurer Kurt Summers, and I've been in the Chicago machine. And I know you've seen, I've seen the craziest things done in 1 year. Craziest. So I'm asking Adrian to tell us her craziest story. Now, you don't have to tell names, but what's the most insane thing you've seen of why a bill didn't pass?
Oh, why a bill didn't pass? Yeah, I know. that's also why I'm like filter. Well, I'll tell you, just the period craziest thing is, I had someone who I asked about voting on something, and they signed on and then came and told me, okay, I signed on to your bill. I'm gonna need your help. I'm running for, office, and I need your financial support in City Hall. Like, not okay on multiple levels, but it's given the history, and even there's been indictments since I've been around. Like, you should know, there's ways to ask me for money, and it's completely legal, but perhaps doing it at City Hall right after you signed on to the bill and saying that that's why you signed on to the bill is not a good idea. Yeah.
Did you face a lot of opposition or opposition money in particular when you were working on passing the PTAO?
No, not really. I think, and can everybody hear the question? The question was there opposition money or opposition, organized opposition when we were trying to pass the privatization ordinance? The problem with, I think, most city council bills, there's not a lot that are contentious in like the sense of there's two warring factions and like not so much, or at least not as much as Springfield. But oftentimes it's just that people put out ideas and then nothing happens. So the fight for us was to keep it relevant on people's minds, and keep people from thinking that it was dead. And so that was the biggest thing. And the reason was because there was no movement, and the administration wanted to wait for the right time, or, and I think they wanted to see if it would just go away. There was a lot of discussion during the negotiations about what was feasible to expect. And, we had a kind of low threshold when we first started. And there was questions about whether that was a good thing, whether we should, construction projects would fall under that, and whether there should be a different threshold for them or whether they should be exempted. So there was a lot of back and forth about things once we got to the table, but it was keeping it relevant and keeping people from thinking, oh, that's not happening. That was the big problem. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that gets introduced in city council, some of it good, some of it random, but a lot of stuff just ends up in rules or even gets sent to a committee and just doesn't ever get heard. There's a lot of stuff that is just sitting in committee. So that's the big problem. Some of it, personally, some people just introduce legislation, may be a good idea, but may not really work it. And so you have 5 people that sit closest to you sign a bill, and it gets assigned to a committee, but it's not getting heard. Then people aren't trying to get more co-sponsors or doing press or a lot of the legwork that it takes to actually get the thing passed. So that's why a lot of things stay fallow too. It's not necessarily a malicious thing, but just since it didn't automatically go through the process, it's not being debated.
You mentioned that one of the things you would do is maybe pass out some sort of handout that helps people better digest this information they have. Do you think that the city council members might be receptive to something from us that helps them kind of sift through information, or something that they would either be a resource that they could use or that they could post or have post for their constituents or something?
Absolutely. So I think one-pagers are God. like that's the only way you're gonna get people that like even really start to look at what you're talking about. I'd say sit down and have a few targeted meetings with people that might be interested in whatever it is that you're working on, either based off of who your alderman is or if they've expressed interest in an issue before, so that you have like a champion, someone that can advocate for you, that can be a resource for other aldermen to talk to them about it, or even to say, hey, I talked to Alderman X, their work, I worked with them to help them understand why data is important, and now they have a link to this open source whatever on their site. You can go look, and just having an example of it's been done, somebody else did it before, it's not the revolution. Like, we'll just help that, get that process started. And if there's something specific, we can talk afterwards, and I can maybe tell you, like, oh, I think this is doing. We'll look to do that. Yeah.
How much power do you think aldermen actually have in policy issues? It seems like a lot of things kind of come down to the mayor's office, and they wait for that to. You think you can come from the ground up and come up with the policy and the constituents or the position?
Yes, I do think that aldermen should do stuff. I mean, so I worked for a city council person in Atlanta when I was in college, and then I lived in Minnesota during grad school. So like the city council experiences I had before are a little different, but and I think there's not so much of a culture of doing it here, but I do think it's possible. I just think that it's helpful. It depends on who you are going to, and I would say choose your sponsor carefully. That's, you know, even in Springfield where there's more of a culture of doing that. Choose your sponsor carefully. Be very clear of what your expectations are. Have a plan so you can help guide them. Have grassroots support so that it's more than just one person coming and talking to them about it. Make sure they're hearing about it from different places. Find out who it is they listen to. I'd say probably in each ward, there's one organization that an alderman really cares about. Like, there may be more than one, but there's at least one organization that an alderman really cares about. So if that organization is making something an issue, or it relates to that organization and be beneficial to that organization, then that's helpful. It's just a matter of, I think, getting a couple of things in place. I mean, it's always easier if you're willing to do a lot of the legwork and the alderman can just get plugged into the process. But I don't think it's impossible, and I say that even only having done one bill basically in the time that I've been lobbying city council for over 5 years now. But I just think it also depends on the issue, because every issue you're gonna come up against isn't the administration's not gonna be opposed to it, and the administration could see that this alderman is proposing an issue and say, I'd like to be a part of that, and then that makes your pathway that much easier. So it just depends on what it is, but I think it's absolutely possible.
Why do so few things get pulled out of committees when they've been sitting in there for months? When there's by the rules of council, there's a procedure to pull them out.
There is a procedure, and so we looked at this, and then the Progressive Caucus a couple of years ago tried to use said procedure. Technically, in the rules of the council, which are actually really short, it's like 2 pages of rules, after 60 days, something's supposed to move out of committee. There's no enforcement mechanism in the city council rules. The option is Rule 41, which, to my knowledge, has been successful. At least in the time that I've been here, it's never been successful. So a couple of years ago, on the TIF ordinance, a TIF ordinance, there's many variations, and then the elected school board ordinance, the Progressive Caucus tried to do Rule 41 to get those things moved from committee, and it did not work. It failed fairly badly. I think elected school board might have gotten 12 votes, somewhere around there. So there was a conversation with one gung-ho person who's no longer in council, who wanted to do the same thing with the privatization ordinance, because, you know, they felt like it was a perfect issue to call the mayor out on privatization, and let's have these people put on the record that they're against privatization. Well, it's never happened, and it really does become about, in that sense, are you with this constituency group or are you with the mayor? And the votes aren't there for it. And then your ordinance or issue is effectively dead. So that's why people don't use it.
Do you go to every city council?
I am at every city council meeting that doesn't conflict with Springfield. So next week I won't be there, I'll be in Springfield. If there's something big we're pushing, then I can choose to say that for city council, but it's just been so hectic with the state that the state has trumped city council for maybe last year or so.
And do you testify?
I testify on every budget hearing, the public hearing that they have at City Hall, which is always fun. Someone from the mayor's office is here, so maybe they have some insight on who gets to go first or not. But it doesn't matter when you sign in. Lawrence Musal from the Civic Federation is always first and talks really long time, and then a lot of the aldermen leave. One year I was third, and I was like, yes. And then so that was the year before last, and then this year I was second to last again. And I was like, damn it! Like, what do we do? Like, we were fighting on the 311 privatization. So usually when I testify, there's only a few aldermen there, so, but yes, I do it every year, and, most of the time, and like I testified on the privatization ordinance when it came up in committee. Usually we try and have members testify to like very specific issues, and I usually testify with like a broad overview type thing where the budget we have, a bunch of members that are impacted, but maybe we had this year we also had taxi drivers who were organizing testify on some of those provisions to talk specifically about the impact on them, but I gave a broad kind of sense of what was going on. I don't like to speak in public actually, and I prefer just like talking to the alderman, and I don't do press if I don't have to. We have a press person for that, and it's always better, I think, and more effective to have the members speak and tell, because they can tell things so much better than I can. I mean, I can say during the health clinic closure fight, I'm speaking on behalf of Ms. Lula, who worked here since she was 19 and is now in her 60s, and this is why she cares so much about the clinic, but it's way better if Ms. Lula goes herself.
That's my last question.
Okay.
Not from here, but I used to also work in city council in DC. And I had a question. You were saying something along the lines of some aldermen have like community organizations or associations or meetings that they really go to, particularly in terms of influence and things of that nature. And that's also kind of the case from. And they have their own kind of rules and kind of navigating that system to figure out like exactly which organization and how to get them to help out, particularly with your set issue.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about like how to approach these organizations, or even where to figure out which one is the one that influences? Because I think that's hard to figure out.
It's hard.
Right? There's a million different community meetings that we have to probably go to, or constituent staff have to go to, and some have more power than others, and you can't. How do you sort of navigate that?
There's no easy answer to that question. Honestly, I think one thing that's helped me kind of figure that out is one of the advantages I have is doing city, county, and state, because I kind of see who's playing in all the spaces. So I'm just gonna pick on Logan Square. Logan Square Neighborhood Association is everywhere. I mean, they're doing a lot of grassroots stuff. They're working on schools issues. They're down in Springfield talking about grow your own teacher. Like, they're everywhere. And I never lived in Logan Square, but I see them everywhere, and I know how active they are. And I know that aldermen are paying attention to what they're doing. And I know that if they get involved on the campaign side, and even though they're not technically involved on the campaign side, but the moms who are working with Logan Square organization, neighborhood association, are a powerful voice in that community and advocates in that community. So it's from being around and seeing them show up. I think also it's making missteps. So I used to live in 25 and went somewhere, and I said to Alderman Solis, like, oh, Pilsen Alliance is signed on. He was like, oh, my favorites, and then only to find out, one of their staffers ran against them the next time. I mean, they have a pretty contentious relationship, which I found out because I was like, oh yeah, we got a Pilsen organization signed on. So there's really no easy answer to it. I think it's also like if you're in the neighborhood and you see where your alderman shows up. Not every alderman, some aldermen are incredibly open, have ward nights, are actually like spending time talking to people at their ward nights as opposed to like taking down notes on trash, alley, whatever. Some of them are like you know, this is my one night. We're like getting everybody through, so you don't, if board night is your only option to meet with them, fine, but make a meeting. Don't let them push you to board night. It just depends. Like some of the aldermanic staff is set up in a way that they have a policy person on staff, and that person might be able to help you navigate. Like, are there any important constituencies that I need to be reaching out to? Are there any folks that the alderman would like me to have on board? And they'll tell you. A lot of aldermen don't have policy people, so that's a little harder. There's no easy answer. It varies tremendously by alderman.
Is there a chance to use open data to help navigate that?
Maybe. The only thing I would add is if they're something like Logan Square Neighborhood Association, LSNA, if they have a C3 and a C4, you can check if that C4 gave all of them money, you might like. Only thing, and that could be open data, which already is there.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Awesome. Thank you.